Hello and welcome to the Volunteer Firefighter podcast. My name is Todd and I am with two fire friends. I've got Scott.
Hello.
And I've got Ash.
Hello.
So a little bit different backgrounds. I'm currently at home in my office. A couple of my family members are sick, so I'm staying at home and I'm duty officer this week, so it's a little hard for me to get away up to the fire hall in Oliver. But we're going to make it work, so hopefully our audio stays good. Tonight we wanted to talk about kind of what makes a good... yeah, there might be some talk over as well, sorry. What makes a good scenario, good training night, good training evolutions, high fidelity, all that. Like what makes guys engaged and how do we do it? So why don't we throw it to you, Scott? You can start and we'll go from there.
Yeah, this question, I was training today with a couple of guys, one being a firefighter in my other job, and we were talking about scenarios in his department. You know, sometimes guys aren't taking it as serious, and their captain works on things pretty hard, and it's been tough trying to get guys engaged in the scenarios. And I was just kind of throwing a few ideas at him. So I think that's what I want to talk about tonight. And yeah, like you said, Todd, we've done a fair amount over the years. We always try to keep them pretty high fidelity, and we try to make them as best we can. Ash, do you want to add anything before we get going on how to start?
No, I think that pretty much hits it. I think, you know, if you're going to be doing this, you want to make sure that you put the time in prior. But yeah, we can dive into that more. I think you nailed it, making it as high fidelity as possible. Try to involve as many people as possible. But yeah, I think we'll dive into all of the more intricacies of it as we go.
Why don't we go back to before we all kind of started doing this? Because I think both of our departments, we all had training nights where it wasn't really as engaged. I mean, it wasn't as, well, I mean, we always kind of did do the scenario-based stuff, but there's a lot of practices that, you know, you try and plan a scenario and guys end up just taking it very slow and too cash and turning it into a training evolution rather than the actual scenario. So yeah, you don't want to use that scenario night to work on the skills. You want to have all the skills prior and then make sure everybody's executing it and working it in real speed, real time, as efficient as we can. Not saying that we can't do a quick pause and a quick little cleanup of something if needed. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, depending on the event, depending on the firefighter. And maybe that'll be a teaching point later after when we do our debriefing. But yeah, so go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, and actually in that discussion we were having today at lunch with the other guy there, Colin, he had asked me when we started doing scenarios. And I said, well, or I don't know if he actually asked me outright, but he was kind of like, you know, you guys do a lot of scenarios. I said, yeah. I said, I remember back when I saw our first one done here. And it was kind of surprising because there's a way that, it was, I think it was like 6 months in, maybe a year in. And it came in as it was actually a full page to a structure fire. It was on a rural area. I don't know if you were on that day, Todd, or if you were maybe away. It's like a derelict old house. So full page. We were going code 3. Everything was like it was real. We thought it was real. So, and we roll in, and I remember Captain, I think, doing the 360. And he looked in the window, and he's like, "There's like a burn barrel in there." He's like, "I think these crackheads are trying to kill themselves." Because there's like a burn barrel burning in there. And it was like, you know, billowing out, like, I think they had hay in or something. I don't know. Like I said, I was very new. So I think I was on second or third truck in, and my job was probably to back up the backup of the backup guy. So I was like way in the back. But I was watching all this and I was like, oh, this is crazy. And then I remember 2 guys pushed in. They vented. You know, I can't remember how everything went, but I remember the 2 guys went in, and then within pretty short order, it was like, they come pulling out this dummy, and we're like, what? And then everybody kind of realized, oh man, that was like a scenario. So that was like I was like, wow, that was pretty cool. And then I was kind of talking to some of the guys about it, and they said, "Oh, we never like that's like we do that every few years. Like every few years they throw one of these at us." I'm like, "Every few years? Well, that was pretty crazy. That should be every few weeks." So I wasn't training officer yet, obviously. I was, but that always planted in my head that scenario and how it went. It wasn't quite live fire because we didn't have a burn building then. It was just an old derelict house. They didn't light it on fire. They just had the burn building in there, or the burn can in there, blowing out smoke, a little bit of heat, making it for a little bit poor visibility, and the building was going to get torn down anyways. But yeah, it was from the start of the page to the fact that we actually responded code 3, to the fact that everyone was like rolling like it was real. I think that was kind of like that got my attention on these scenarios. Obviously, over the years now, we've done so many scenarios now, guys. I just know it's a scenario night. But part of the thing was in this discussion we had today was that our guys still to this day take the scenarios fairly seriously. Sometimes they're a little bit of joking, but for the most part, they're trying to rock and roll in the scenario as though it's real. So that's what our guys are awesome for that. They don't they don't really slack off in those scenario nights.
Yeah, I think I remember. It's just as you're telling that story. I remember. This is going back to early 2000s. I was on your department still, but I was asked to help with the ambulance in Osuyas for a scenario night. Being the fact that the guys would see me there and see me there as the ambulance side, not the fire side, and we went and stoved a pickup truck under a deck truck from a semi truck trailer up in one of the industrial areas. Nobody knew anything about it. They paged it out, same scenario. Everybody responded up there. We had ambulance involved, so ambulance came up and helped with the training event as well. They responded to code 3. And I think there's no fire, but I think they simulated a fuel leak, and the guys were dealing with that, and then they kind of realized, hey, that's not fuel. But then the other guys doing the auto X of the patient, they still had no idea. So they're treating it as real as it comes and started going through everything. But they're so focused in on just the driver. We actually had Scott Driver, one of our past members, who's now the chief out in Cranbrook. He was laying in the box of the truck, quiet. Didn't say a peep. Nobody checked the box of the truck. Had a canopy on it and stuff. And once they kind of pulled the first patient out, everybody starts scaling back down. Okay, yeah, we're fine. You're stepping back, putting the equipment back down, and you hear this bang, 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 help! And I remember looking at their faces. Everybody was like, oh shit, we forgot somebody. We missed something. And they jumped right back in there, and the stress level was high. And then they saw Scott. We're like, wait a minute. This is not real. Okay. And then there's a few of this, what the fuck? This is a training night? Yep, this is a training night. But the taste I had in my mouth from that was kind of like, well, like it was good to see them hustling, but still, like as soon as they saw that familiar face, there was a bit of a panic of, oh shit, we know this guy, versus, hey, wait a minute, this isn't real. Like, what the hell? Like, you should have at least told us that, hey, this is a scenario. So I feel it's very important letting them know that, hey, this is the training night, this is a training evolution or a scenario evolution. Maybe some simulated blood or whatever, but yeah, it's not real, because you don't want to stress the guys out to the degree of that panic that hey shit, they missed something now, and it's just not a good way to set up your event.
Yeah, it's kind of a fine line. You got to balance between like how real to make it and then how real not to make it. Because you don't want them to be slacking on it, but you also don't want them to get PTSD over the scenario night.
Absolutely, right? Yeah. I think the way we've been doing things for a number of years now with you guys and us, leading up to that night, like having a couple of practices, practicing the scenario evolutions of, if it's live fire, hey, we're doing, we're pushing some teams in, we're doing VIS, or we're going to do a firefighter down, or a search and pull somebody out, and then knowing that, hey, there's that third practice that's going to be the scenario night. Now you don't know exactly what one of those training evolutions is going to be, but You just practice them all. So you're just going to reach into that toolbox, grab what you need, and go.
Yeah, and I think it's always been an important part of the sims is doing the pre-build of the skills. And the guys know something's coming. They know that something's that we've done is gonna be part of the scenario. Usually, sometimes we have what we've kind of done lately is we have the skill they practiced, but then also somehow in the scenario we throw a skill they haven't practiced in a while in there. So they kind of get that little bit of oh, I'm really good at this. Oh, but I got to work on that. And then literally the next practice, that's what we work on. So it's kind of like it's not really a shit sandwich, but it's like, hey, you're really good at this, and then oh, but you kind of suck at that. Oh, but don't worry, we're going to train you on it. So don't get too upset about it.
Yeah. So one thing that pops in my mind of a really good scenario that worked really well, there's a lot of factors, was if we go back a couple of years now, I guess, we started practicing, you guys were doing FR evolutions, FR training. We're doing a lot of stop the bleed training and some MCI training. And then I think, if I remember correctly, we kind of got inspired with the scenario of multi-car pileup that we're seeing on the news from these freeways and stuff in the wintertime. So down at your training grounds, you guys set up, what was it? You had motorhome on fire, tractor trailer involved, another car with a underride or something, I think it was, and MCI, multiple patients. So MCI, MVI, and fire.
Yeah, that one is. And one thing we didn't mention about scenarios is it's hard to do a scenario that involves everyone. So I kind of look at it as there's two ways to do it. You do a massive scenario like that. Before we get into that one, we do a massive scenario that involves everybody. Like whether we had like on that one you're talking about, we had like you said, there was a fire, so the guys had to fight the fire. There was some extrication involved, and then there was a bunch of patient care stuff. So that one, I think it involved pretty much every member that was on the truck, or on all the attending apparatus on like 3 trucks or 4 trucks, whatever we had to attend. And then there's the other ones where you have to plan, like if it's going to be kind of a response that we could probably do with 4 or 5 people, because you don't want to have everybody show up and then have 4 or 5 people doing the work and then 10 guys standing around watching what's going on. And I think kind of the most recent one we did for that was we had an over embankment in the summer. We did an over embankment rescue down the hill, which involved the rappelling. And Ash, I don't know if you were involved in that one. Like I think you were an officer in that. I don't know if you were what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was early stages of planning, and then stepped out so I could be part of the sim. So yeah, it was like many parts: over embankment, rope rescue, patient care to injured patients in the vehicle. We've discussed this on the podcast before, and because it was tinder dry summertime conditions, the vehicle actually ended up sparking a bit of a grass fire. So it was very multifaceted with the skill sets that were required.
Oh, see, I was actually talking about a different one. That's how many scenarios we've done. I was talking about the one when we had the over embankment up by where Rob lives, middle of summer, and then I paged you guys out to a water rescue call of a drowning kayaker in the middle of the lake. Right. So yeah. So like that's how many scenarios we've done. So that one, because I knew the over embankment wasn't going to eat up everybody, because it was going to be, there's only going to be so many guys that can go on the line. And it was also kind of a way to kind of see how they're going to redeploy their crew, because that's another option. Like you have to see, like, hey, can the crew shift gears? Because sometimes that's what scenarios are for, to see how quickly we can shift gears. So I purposely waited, and I forget who was helping me on that one, but I was out in the middle of the lake. So I was in my wetsuit, and I swam out in the middle of the lake just as we paged it out. So we waited until the lines are hooked up on the rescue truck, because the rescue truck has the receivers for the over embankment lines. So the guys are rappelling down this 100-foot embankment to go to the rescue some patients. And then the page comes out for a water rescue call in the middle of the lake. And again, we made it so realistic that I was floating out there and I'm yelling for help. And two guys that are off duty fire from a city department, they start swimming into the middle of the lake to come rescue me. And I'm like, no, it's just a scenario. So that's how realistic we make these things. And, we tell people that we can, but, and we do have some signs, but, and we can't throw them everywhere. But, yeah, it was pretty cool watching two guys actually come start they're running on the shoreline. Oh, you need help. No, it's just a scenario. So yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to run these scenarios, and that that's kind of the two big ones. You do a big one, or you do a couple mini ones that kind of divide up the crew.
Yeah, so I mean, there's lots to choose from that we can talk about. I think the one, as you're telling that story, for a large one that involves multiple people and keep them on their toes, was last winter when you guys did the car fire. It was a stolen vehicle. Car was on fire out at Wade's. And then there's somebody in the ice. They said, we reported that the two people, or the police officer, chased the suspect out to the ice and they fell through. So you had one truck putting out car fire, the other guy's prepping for ice rescue, and then your rescue truck was prepping for overembankment to get them up from that lake as well. So that had everybody involved and kind of three quite separated locations as well. So, talking about getting everybody involved in their own little skill sets, that one worked really well for that, because the first engine came up, IC was getting the report of what happened, and then quickly had to change gears of, oh no, now we have a rescue as well, not only just the car fire. So there's a lot of great communication with the guys in the trucks of, hey, okay, well, where do you want to set up? Okay, well, we want I think the rescue truck came down first, down to where the car fire, the beach access was, sort of getting the guys geared up for the ice rescue, and then relocated up to the bank to go and start prepping the lines into the basket stretcher.
Yeah, I think, like, sitting back and just listening to the ones that we've come up with, I think that's the main focus here tonight, is like, how do you wrap your brain around coming up with something like that, right? Like, it's easy to look back and think about all these wild sims that we've put on as a group, and I think that's one of the main things that we should focus on, is we put these on as a group. It doesn't just fall on one person to always come up with these crazy ideas and spin what might start as like a super crazy idea and then pare it down into a workable scenario. When you have 4, 5, 6 people that are on a crew that you can bounce some ideas off of and build up a realistic but very challenging scenario, that's what's going to yield you the best results. So being able to think outside the box, like, it starts as easy as, hey, I want to do a ice rescue. Like, and on that one that Todd was just saying, that was kind of the whole point, was let's do an ice rescue. Perfect. Well, where is there ice still? Okay, here, and here. Perfect. Okay. So this is where we're going to do it. Okay, so we go and scout that out. I mean, luckily for us, it was on some private property, so we had a little bit of creativity, I would say, that we were allowed to do some outside the box training there. So, you kind of start to build off that. Like, okay, is it just going to be ice rescue? How many people is that going to involve? All right, do we block off the road and make it so they can only come from here? So they have to deploy ropes to get down to the edge of the water, and then they have to go onto the ice and effectively perform an ice rescue. Okay, well, now that's half of the guys. All right, now how can we build on this? And I think it comes back to, for us, years of running our cash raffle, where we write these crazy scripts for like these skits that we perform for our townsfolk, that we give away money every year, and we have to write all these scripts, and we kind of lean on that ability where we can kind of write a story that goes along with it. Because even a simple structure fire, if you roll up, yeah, there's a structure fire and there's some people there, well, like, tell the rest of the story. Yeah, hey, there's somebody outside screaming. I'm the 911 caller. Oh, hey, this is my vehicle at home, and kind of making it more real, not just somebody saying, "Yep, we have a fire with 2 people inside." No, like, I want to see this person's screaming at the IC when they get there that their husband and their child or their wife and their whatever dog, I don't care what it is, are still inside, because that adds the realism back to even the incident command that's getting there first.
Yeah, like I look back at the one that we ran, I think last year. The guy was putting up his Christmas lights on the burn building, so it came in as an FR call, and I think I was duty officer. I was on the truck. I was thinking I was captain on the truck or something. I ended up being IC somehow, and I roll up and there's a guy laying on the ground, and his ladder is falling half sideways. So he's laying on the ground, like injured pelvis or whatever, so unstable. Where our guys start doing FR on him. We have a small FR crew with us, and then somehow, I forget, we realized the wife that called is nowhere to be found. So start doing a search for her, and then next thing, smoke starts coming out of the burn building. So, and then it ends up being a structure fire. Well, we're like, well, how does that happen? And actually, it could happen because what the storyline was, again, building a storyline that's kind of plausible, was the husband was putting up his Christmas light, fell off the roof. As the wife came out to help him, she left the cooking, her French fries or whatever were on the stove. She ended up letting her kitchen on fire because she's now helping the husband. She forgot to turn the stove off because she's going to panic about her husband. She ran back inside to turn the stove off, and now it's a structure fire. So now she collapses from the smoke, and I think their kid was in the house too. So now it turned from just a simple FR call, and then it layered onto all these things. And right off the bat, people are like, wow, that's just craziness. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, why are you making it so hard? Well, we try to layer it in such a way that it's all just principle-based. So, it's all basic skills. Nothing's crazy. Like, we don't do, like sometimes, like Ash said, we have crazy storylines that sometimes we come up with, like, well, let's do this. Let's do like a 737 jumbo jet suddenly crashed into an orchard. Like, what? Like, I don't think that's ever actually been one, but we do some kind of really nutty ones. That initially that starts as an idea, and then we're like, let's draw that back to something that could actually happen in our town. Chance of a jumbo jet falling out of the sky is pretty slim, but we could have an airplane crash because we've had that. We could have something else, like so we kind of bounce those ideas off each other, but we always try to layer it and make it so it's and one thing you have to do is you always have to make it winnable. So one thing I said long ago was we don't kill firefighters, and we don't make it unwinnable. So we don't, like, if they run out of time, the whole building explodes and everyone dies. No, it always has to be winnable by them, and the firefighters never die. They might get injured, they might need writ, but they never just collapse from something that they've done wrong and die, because that's what's called a training scar. So you give them a training scar, and now they're going to be like, well, I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous. So that's one thing you have to be very cognizant of. If not giving people training scars, you have to give them a winnable situation where they're not going to, firefighters aren't going to die.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, let's just go back to kind of what you said there, Ash. You kind of nailed it, right? Like, so you get multiple people involved to start building this training evolution, and okay, hey, like, this is our scenario we're going to do. So we've led up to it by these training nights practicing skill ABCD, right? But like you said, Scott, it's not just one person creating this event. It's a handful of people. So what you guys have set up is your training division. And then you guys cycle through. So if you want some of the officers to be involved in the scenario that don't know what's going on, you get other members of the training division involved in that creating that storyline or the scenario. And then the officers don't know, so they just respond on truck, and it's a live scenario. So I find that works really well as well, because like you mentioned, Scott, if it's just one person, one captain or something, or training officer coming up with this, okay, this is our scenario, this is what we're going to do, it's too much on one person. You need a few other people involved to help get that flow going and that storyline. And like you said, Scott, it needs to be winnable. And that's key, because like you said, you don't want to create these training scars. Like, we've all had these training nights where at the end of it, the debriefing is like, well, that was shit. We didn't do this, we didn't do that. We like, this is not a positive way to win. You need to set the table, if you will, as far back as the training nights leading up to it, to setting the table for this scenario. And you're setting that table by training the skill sets that you're going to be using and having a few people involved to create that storyline. And one person can be in charge of, like if you do a multifaceted one, like the ice rescue over embankment and car fire, or the MCI one, you have one guy involved in, okay, they're overseeing the MCI portion. Another training officer is overseeing the live fire evolution, et cetera, et cetera. So by splitting up those roles and responsibilities is key.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's also really important when the people that set up the scenario don't take part in it. If you're going to be hands-on within the scenario, you're setting yourself up for failure, and it's not yourself. You're setting your crew up for failure because nobody will ever see the vision that you have in your mind. There's 1,000 ways that you can get to the outcome. And we always joke and say that all fires stop, all bleeding stops. So the scenario will end one way or another. And as long as a fire goes out and the patients get out of the vehicle or out of the structure or whatever it is, that's a positive outcome. How you get there and how efficient you get there is going to be up to the team that is in the end responding. But what we've found as a training crew is you can be that sort of angel on the shoulder. So coming back to trying to set people up for success, allow them to stumble in a scenario, but then, oh, hey, what are you up to? What are you thinking? Oh, okay. Have you thought about this? Like, don't say, oh, hey, are you sure you checked upstairs? No. Oh, hey, did you have a team go upstairs yet? Oh, shoot, no, I haven't yet. And then now they're making the decision themselves. So they're, oh, shit, I haven't. Let me make that happen. So it's not, hey, you better send somebody upstairs because, haha, we've got a dummy up there and you just fucking kill them. No, it's, hey, have you thought about maybe sending a secondary team upstairs now that the smoke's cleared? Something like that, just prompting them, kind of that angel on the shoulder, allowing them to come up with a decision for themselves and then get the team acting a certain way because of their choice is the best possible thing. Yeah, rather than allowing them to fail and sitting back with your arms crossed. Like, well, I know what we have to train now. Like, we utilize scenarios to know where our strengths and weaknesses are because you can step back, you can detach yourself from it and see the overall view. But if you're just doing that with your arms crossed and watching every negative aspect of it, you're not building skill set. You're getting those training stars. And then people don't want to do that hot hustle and they're going to take a couple extra moments and think about what they're doing, not falling back to their training and working on instinct and the direction of their officer.
Yeah, look at that that angel on the shoulder. Not only it helps the scenario progress and helps them remember, but it also helps me as a training officer and as a captain once I am actually on the fire ground, is to think like when I detach, because I'm detached, right? Like Ash said, you're detached as the training section, because we're wearing a safety vest and we're not like we're like referees for kind of this scenario. But by doing that, I find even on fire grounds, like I'll often detach myself, become the safety guy, and then I'll say to the IC, like I've said to Ash before when he's running a fire, I'm like, hey, did you? And it's not like I accuse him. I'm like, hey, did we happen to check here? Oh shit, no, we didn't. Or oh yeah, I did. Okay, perfect. It's kind of like that. I act as the angel on the shoulder even when I'm not in the training scenario. It helps you get that mentality of act as the angel on the shoulder in the fire ground. Not accusatory or like, hey, you really screwed this one up. It's more like, hey, did you remember to do this? Did you remember to do that? Because there's so much stuff to remember on a fire ground. You're not going to remember it all. So that helps us as, and that's one reason why we have all the captains are part of the training section. That's kind of a mandatory thing for captains. They have to be at least take part in the planning of some of the training. Some want to do more than others. And then up and coming captains are usually part of the training section because it gets them in that mindset of helping out, not like Ash says, not smugly like crossing your arms. Is like, these guys should have known better. It's like, well, yeah, you're the one that planned it. Of course, you have it all worked out in your head. And I think that's the other thing that's important is don't get upset when your scenario doesn't go the way you wanted it done. If you want it done, go join Hollywood and make a movie. Because this is not what this is for. This is a scenario. So if you want, so you make it kind of guide it as you want it to happen, but then you got to let it happen. And you can't be like, oh my God, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, I wanted to do that, I wanted to do this. Like, no, it just, okay, yeah. Then for next time, if I really want them to do something, I will build them in the scenario that there's no other choice but for them to do that. But you also got to be careful not to do that too much, because you don't want to hold their hand and force them into a situation, because that's not really them learning. That's them now being like pushed into a thing they're like, they wouldn't have maybe thought about, or they would have eventually thought of. So it keeps the mind open too, because guys will like, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. No scenario survives first contact with firefighters, because you're like, oh, didn't even see that. And then they do something totally like off the wall that you weren't even expecting, but it works, or it didn't. And then we discuss it in the debrief.
Yeah,
I
you
think
just nailed.
you nailed.
Go ahead, Todd.
I was gonna say, yeah, you really nailed it with the angel on the shoulder thing. Like, in a real fireground scenario, in a real event, 911 event, that's what we're all doing. The officers are all doing that. If we see something, we're going to come up to the IC or the safety or another officer and say, hey, did you guys think about this? Or, you ask that question. You're not accusing them. Whereas sometimes in those training events, if somebody isn't doing that, and I've seen it from firefighters and other officers, they sit back and they go, oh, they forgot about this. Or, hey, they didn't do that. I would have done it this way. It's like, well, they didn't see that. Well, are you gonna say something? Like, step up, say something. Like, it's not on the IC or that particular officer's role in that training event to fail. You're still as a team. You have to speak up and say something. We're all looking for safety. We're all working together with the ideas. Like, you're gonna have your instant action plan as an IC and as your officers. However, you see something, you got to say something, or you got to ask. Look for that clarification. We had a RIT event quite a while ago, where some of the firefighters were kind of standing in the RIT evolution, saying, "Oh well, why are they doing it that way? They should be doing it this way." And they're not answering their radio. IC's calling them. Like, well, what team are you on right now? Oh, I'm backing up RIT. Say something. Speak up. Answer the radio for them. Pat them on the shoulder. Hey, IC's calling you. You want me to get it? Like work as a team. And if you don't work out those kinks in the training, it's not going to work in real life.
Yeah, I think one of the really important things to do, and I'll reference one of our scenarios that actually didn't go very well. It didn't matter what we kind of prompted as an angel on the shoulder. Just the guys were having an off day, and that's going to happen. But what we didn't do is dwell on all of the negatives. Like, I think it's very, very important to have that roundtable debrief afterwards. Talk about the positives, talk about the negatives, and don't sugarcoat it. If something didn't go well, explain it, talk it through. Don't point fingers like, hey, Todd, like, why did you do this, fucking guy? No, it's, hey, like, as a team, like, what do we think our strengths were tonight? What do we think our weaknesses were? You know what? I believe that you guys did a really good job forcing that door, making the push. I heard really good comms, blah, blah, blah. Hey, you know what? We actually didn't clear the upper level, like, whatever it might be. Like going through, and Scott's famous two stars and a wish go a long way. But when you have a scenario that might not go exactly the way that you had planned, what we've actually done is the very next week we recreated the exact same scenario, flipped up a couple of people, like changed some people in leadership, changed some people on the truck, still had everybody involved. And that wasn't to say that these guys did it wrong. It was just allowing them to step out of that area and see from a different viewpoint. So there was no blame placed on anybody in any particular position. It was more of a, hey, like, you already know, you've already made these choices, so it's unfair to put you back in there because you're not going to make that exact same one again. Let's put somebody else in there having heard and seen the choices that you made, and now you can be like an in-play angel and say, hey, like speak up and say something to that person. So we did that. We had a live fire scenario that went okay. Like, it wasn't shit, but like, it wasn't the best that we've ever had. And then we ended up doing it again. We switched up the people and allowed them to go in and succeed as a team. And it was crazy to watch the people that were in leadership roles before, like be it IC or like a first-in officer, would then step back and be maybe on the second truck, but was such a vocal supporting officer, or a firefighter that saw something before was like, hey, let's make sure that we do this. And the second go around left such a positive mark that I think having that quote failure the first time, which every scenario can be winnable, but doesn't mean you're going to do a good job every time. So being able to come back and take that winnable and improve upon it and actually like excel, I think landed way better than if a person would have just said, well, we know what we have to work on, awesome hustle here and here, but we know we have a whole bunch of things to work on, and then not touch it again for 2 or 3 months. I think that would have left a lot more of a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouths than getting back after it immediately while it's still fresh and improving upon it immediately.
Yeah, 100% agree. Well said. So do we want to add anything more to that, or we want to talk about any specific scenario that worked well, how we kind of set it up? What do you guys think?
I don't know. There's just so many. It's kind of, and like I said, don't always do it over. Like, don't always do structure fire. Don't always do some crazy, like, ridiculous thing. You can just make them simple too. Like a couple weeks ago, we just did we're doing scenarios almost once a month now. So, to make them crazy every week or every month, it gets hard to do because it takes a lot of work. But even last scenario we did, we kind of talked about this a couple episodes ago. Ash just ran it. Rash was running it by himself. We had a slimmer crew that night because I think it was right in the middle of hunting season. So we had like 5 guys away that are normally there, but they're all out hunting. So smaller crew. We kind of had a quick chat. I kind of knew what the scenario was going to be. Didn't really know the full deal. So Ash and I had a quick chat. I said, yeah, let's just run it. He had to kind of do it by himself. So it wasn't, as elaborate. But it was a bread and butter structured fire, search, put the fire out kind of thing, a little bit of venting, find the patient, get him out. Very simple. But then what we did is we had time. So we just did the same evolution like 2 or 3 more times. That was probably the first time we've done that, where we've done the scenario and then did it again a few more times to really nail it because we had time. Other times there's like there's like car accident. Obviously, once the car's cut, you can't really recut the car. So, but that again, we usually have those as multiple vehicles, multiple patients, and it's never going to be just like a quick fender bender, unless it's one of those scenarios where we have multiple scenarios going on at once. So, I forget what I was getting at. Basically, it kind of based it on the time of year, realistically, what's going to happen that time of year. So, we like I said, we got a fire call.
NBA, let's cut it there, boys.
All right.
See you later, Todd.
Stay safe. Stay DTFF.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers.